All right, guys, this is Mark Blanton from the Real South Africa. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
Sacrificed. Those people who made a difference, we would not be here, right?
Exactly.
So it's their stories that we're honoring. And before we get started to this conversation, I want to have a moment of gratitude for the journey you've been on. Because I can tell you that if every single person here were to come up here and tell us a little bit about your background and what you've been through, we'd all be crying, one after the other. Because every single person here has a story that's riveting, that is gripping. And that's something I'm certain about because of my work and what I've been able to do. So before we go through that, I just want to have a moment of gratitude. And I want to go around the room and find out what you guys are grateful for. Just one or two things you guys are grateful for. So anybody who wants to raise your hand and just share something that you are grateful for, whether it's in your background or in your story or for tonight, to meet new people. If you're just grateful for the fact that you're so beautiful, you can say that. For your family. You know, I know Amanda. Amanda's very sure about that. Yeah, let's just have a quick gratitude moment. No did it.
Hi everyone, my name is Namdede Mdaki, and I'm listening to Timothy speak, and I always take everything he says in. I've known him for a very long time. But what I'm grateful for is last year I turned 40, and I have felt such deep gratitude for my life. All the experiences I've been through, the challenges, the ups and the downs. I think I'm finally at a place where I've come full circle. I'm Christian, so the number 40 is very important for preparation. I feel like I'm right at the beginning of the best years of my life.
Wow. So I was like, okay, cool. Then I went to Felicia's Facebook just to catch up because we hadn't really spoken in a long time, and I saw that she had written a book. And I was like, why don't we do a book signing in South Africa? You're coming to South Africa for the first time. And so let's share with our database, our network, bring a few people out to hear a little bit about your story and what you're about. So please welcome Felicia to South Africa. Please, you want to say hi to these wonderful people?
I do. I told many people in the room, I'm so over the moon. So, and I just want to be clear, Tim and I are from the same place, but I haven't lived in South Africa, so I have a very southern accent,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna be who I am. Okay. Okay.
Is it North Carolina?
So Felicia,
North Carolina.
So the real truth is, when we were in college, I had a crush on Felicia, and she friend zoned me. So I was like, so the friend zoner is coming to South Africa. Okay. She turned out wonderful. You've got a husband and some kids that are about to graduate college, right? An extraordinary human being. You have not changed. Beautiful smile, wonderful spirit and energy, and I really felt that we'll be able to add some value tonight. So I think we're going to settle in and just have a conversation. I feel like if we sit down, we're going to kind of disappear.
Yeah, I think so.
And we kind of stand up and have this conversation. So the way we're going to structure tonight is, the first thing we're going to do is just talk a little bit.
Stop it. I just feel the need to say something because a story broke out this morning. Who's being abused by her mom. She was an actress, was doing very well, and I struggled to watch that. And I just sat there and I tried to really put myself in the mom's shoes, whatever the situation is. And I just said to myself, so many people out there are very angry, whatever it is they've gone through. And probably the biggest pity is that they will never be able to resolve that. And I found myself just appreciating my parents, who are 90 years old. I lost my mom last year at 89. My dad turned 90 a couple of months ago. And I'm from Craddock. That's where the Craddock folk comes from. The Chris Honeys and all of those things worked very close with my dad and obviously his parents. And to be raised by people who were so exposed to such things, but who brought us up with such love and peace, and not the kind of anger I saw this morning on social media. I think that's what I have to be grateful for today. Thank you.
So I'm grateful for seeing my friend Gladwin after 6 years today. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks. Raise your hand so we can keep the mic flowing in the back.
Tuesday, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, and then we started out with just learning the lay of the land, getting some history, some background on apartheid. We did Robben Island. We visited some of the townships, some of the black communities, and just got some of the background on the differences of what apartheid was about and the breakdown of all of that. And then we went to a winery on Saturday, which was beautiful. And I think we were on the first black winery in that area. And that was a nice deal. That was good. What else have we done?
Oh man, we
visited the township, right, the square and all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, we've eaten a lot. We've been in some of those smaller village type areas just to understand, the different cultures and the different people that make up the South African community. So lovely.
And so from here, you guys are going to do Soweto, and then you're going to go to the bush and safari and all that sort of stuff. So you told me that so far the trip has been life-changing for you. I will say that there's quite a few Americans here. That doesn't happen often, but if you're American, raise your hand. Yeah, there's quite a few Americans here. I can see some of you don't know how to feel about Americans. You're like, hey, shit.
Yo.
Who let them in? So, on behalf of Trump, it's another conversation. But
Pray for us, bro.
yes. But the main reason why, Felicia's background is in change management. So there is some method to this madness. It's not just about an old crush coming to town. It's really about the fact that everybody here, your story matters, and we feel as though the aggregate of all of our stories are what a nation, a country is about. And the fact that if you think of anywhere on this planet that you've ever gone that's touched you, it's because of the people, not a mountain. It's the people. And, I've been kind of immersed in Chris Hani's journey. I don't know if you guys have seen on social media today. Chris Hani's murderer was interviewed in Poland, I think.
Yeah.
And I've been fairly close with one of Chris Hani's daughters. And I've thought a lot about Chris Hani's story and what it meant to the liberation of this country. And all the unknown people.
In her second year of college, my son graduated. He graduated in 2024 from high school, so now he's in the university studying as well. I also have an older son who is my stepson. My husband had a son before we got married. And I have raised him. He lived with us. And so with all of those different pieces, I began to reflect on my own life. My father passed away in 2019. And I started reflecting on my own life and where I was at that point, because kids are pretty independent, so I knew, they were going to be on their way. And so I made a list, and I made a list of all the things that I wanted to accomplish. Quite honestly, that I put it in the parking lot, because I was so focused on making sure that they were prepared. I have no regrets about that, but I became very intentional in 2023, because I'm like, wait, half a century, 5.0. And so yeah, that's basically what happened. I went to a seminar, I signed up for a seminar because I wanted to understand what being an author was about, what that process was. I was like, this is a quick way to get in, listen to what they have to say. And by the time I left there, I was being encouraged to join the Ignite community and be a part of their next book. So the Ignite community was created by a lady in Canada. Her name is J.B. Owens. And JB actually is like, she is so cool. Like, she's into fashion, she's into, the writing, and she does a lot of philanthropy work in Canada. And she actually owned a fashion company for children in Europe at one point, but she closed all that down. Back in Canada, living with her husband, raising her kids. And so she had her first marriage, from what I understand, she went through, it wasn't the best ending. And so in that, she joined a women's group, and they started talking about their stories. And so from that, she created the Ignite community. So the Ignite community is a group of folks that have come together and said, we want to share our stories with the world. So they're authors, and I believe there is a writer in there from South Africa. But yeah, she just goes out, work with regular, everyday people to get their stories out to the masses, to encourage, and typically those stories have a focal point. So I'm in Ignite Your Courage. There are other books out there: Ignite Your Faith, Ignite Your Prayer, Ignite Your Parenting.
So the Ignite model can apply to various things. So what I liked about the book was how it was structured, because towards the end there were so you tell the story, and then towards the end there were practical things to help people ignite their story. Let's talk a little bit about your specific story. You just said something that was really powerful. Has anybody ever delayed or decided not to do something because you needed to take care of someone else, whether it was a child or a parent? Anybody else, right? So I think we can all relate to that. And you decided intentionally at this young age of 50 that I am going to do all of these things that I have delayed a little bit. What were some of them besides writing a book?
I want to get my PhD. I'm going to get my PhD. I haven't even applied yet, but it's going to happen. My father passed in 2019. My mother retired, and I think 2 years later. So I want to do some traveling with her because she had a very demanding job. My parents lived in New York, and I'm in the DC area. So I want to do some traveling with her. I've been fortunate enough to make sure my kids had some international travel. And so we've been bringing my mom along and doing some of that with her. As my story points out, my dad was a musician. And so one of our goals is to go to all the places that he went to.
Oh, wow. What were some of the places on his list where he was? So he was like a traveling musician? And what are some of the cool places that he went to?
He played for the King of Morocco. I don't know if he'll answer the door when I go. But Morocco is on our list. My mom and I just went to Panama. He went there several times to play for some events. Japan. In fact, my son just called home before he left home. He said, Mom, I think I want to go to Japan this summer. Do you think we can reroute our vacation and just go to Japan? Not this summer, but maybe next summer. So Japan is on the list. And my mom wants to go to Italy because they had not done that. That was a promise that they would. So we're going to take her to Italy too. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I wanted to get across today is I wanted to accomplish two things. One is merging the principles in this book and how they structured it with some of my research on the behavioral science research, on why we get caught up in negativity in our stories. Anybody have any thoughts about, because we want this to be a little bit of a dialogue as we go through this as well, why do we focus so much on failures and negativity in our stories? Who has any idea around why you think that is the case? Okay, Bertha?
So I'm going to try. I think a failure, tragedy, and trauma has a very cutting, deep sensation that almost rearranges your emotional DNA. And you spend a lot of time focusing on how to cope, how to survive. So you develop rituals, behavioral rituals, that becomes innate. Whereas joy and success and happiness is fleeting. And we are not accustomed to dwelling in joyous moments or being deliberate.
So we're going to replace that chair.
Or being deliberate about repeating experiences, rituals, and habits and interactions that sustain the fleeting moments of joy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's my
Okay.
take on it.
Okay. Billy, you want to touch on that real quick?
So nature has placed mankind under the governance of two sovereign masters, which are pain and pleasure. So evolutionarily speaking, pain weighs much more than pleasure because it's closer to survival. Humans are all about self-preservation. So anything that is negative and that you focus on, it means that's something that is very close to fear, which is very close to death itself. So that's my
Okay.
neuroscientific explanation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I got a feeling based on what they're saying that this is my friend Jean, that he may be focused on. People are like, how was the launch? It's either that or we play paddle together. And he launched recently. Hopefully you weren't having a moment. Let me just say that one of the reasons I started with gratitude is because gratitude is a way of hacking negativity in stories. And part of what I want us to do is I interviewed a Harvard professor on my podcast recently about rituals. And I want you to be thinking for a moment what rituals you have in your life to be able to counteract and address some of these innate patterns that you were speaking about. Because we underestimate the power of ritual. Like when you wake up and you have a gratitude moment, or you go to church, or you go to some sort of experience often. Anybody wonder why Jews wear kippas, why Muslims wear their garb, why Christians wear crosses? Is because symbols help regulate the seat of the soul. So it's a regulatory dynamic that when your lower primitive self wants to think about something crazy, it's a quick reminder. Mm-hmm. Are you following me? And so I want us to think about, as we take away today, is the power of story, that you go back and think about weaving in some additional rituals. And we're going to talk a little bit about a couple more in a moment. I want to go back to this book for a moment. So anybody here want to write a book, by the way? Anybody want to write a book? Okay, there's a few people who want to write. How many of you have written one already? I see Siki is here. You've written a book. Okay, cool. And so, tell us a little bit about your writing process. Did you sit down? Were you in the garden? Were you at the Starbucks? How did you go about writing?
I'm trying to remember. It's probably between a football game and a rugby game. But I remember having that download, and I remember, I know I told you about my father passed away in 2019. So I kind of want to go to that piece of it because as you talk about those negative pieces, right? So I just told you my dad was a musician. We lived in North Carolina. My mom and my dad made an agreement when I was in junior high. And I just want to give you a little bit of context. So Tim and I grew up in a very, like the county is made up by, I would say probably about 5 towns, some
Very
small, very small. And it's a rural area, tobacco, a lot of factories, and it's different, right? So my grandparents, my mother's parents farmed in the morning, and then they both had, my grandfather worked second shift, which was from 3 to 11, at the cigarette factory, and my grandmother worked 11 to 7, third shift, in the cotton factory, a textile. They did all the weaving and for the cotton so that it would be prepared for textile products. So my dad was not the story because he was like, I'm not working in the factory. And that's a no-no where we come from. What do you mean? And so my mom gave my dad the opportunity. She agreed, they made an agreement that he would go to New York and pursue his music there. Now, he had tried this 3 times. So I would just say it wasn't easy because my mom was making the sacrifice. So there are a huge amount of negative points over those years, right? And tough points. And I'm a mama's girl, but my mom said my dad is still alive because when I talk, he's talking. So I'm a lot like my dad. So anyway, in those negative experiences, I had to kind of get myself to a place where I could find the beauty in his story. And I remember after my father's service, my aunt came to me. She was my aunt by marriage. And she said, I never understood until today. Because he did not fit. He was not the prototype for where we come from. And so that was very difficult for me as a child because we grew up in a place where everybody knows everybody has an opinion, everybody has something to say. And if they said it, in 7 days you'll hear about it. So I had to think about the beauty in his story and the beauty of my parents' marriage and how she stood by him and she supported him in his desire to become a professional musician. And her having to make all the day-to-day ins and outs with me at home while he was 10, 12 hours away. So the book process was really me taking some time to reflect and find the heart of my story. And so it became very easy to write because I didn't try to make anything up. I didn't try to make it be something that it wasn't. I just told the story. And I found, we'll talk a little bit later, but I worked with high school kids for about 12 years. And when we worked with them and coached them on writing college essays and essays for scholarships and all these different pieces, it was always about the personal story. And those were the kids that would win. So that's how I wrote my story.
So I think Colin, I know a few people here have done TED Talks. Anybody done it? Ziki, a few people, 4 or 5 people. Anybody want to do one? Anybody want to do a TED Talk? So one of the most powerful things about doing any sort of talk is that if you tell your story, you are essentially mapping in the person's brain
a new pattern. So one of the most extraordinary reasons why you should consider being bold enough to tell your story is that it is the highest form of technology in terms of mapping a connection with another human being. So long before we had any sort of form of technology, telling stories was the highest technology. And I still believe it is the most efficient way of gaining access to another human being. That if you really want to tap into the highest part of another person, you've got to be able to first listen and engage someone else's story. And so when you think about this book, what is it that you're most proud of? Because I can imagine it's nerve-wracking, you feel vulnerable telling your story. What is it about this process that you're most proud of?
Sure, there are probably obviously there are lots of reasons why I'm most proud. I think as an African American, our stories, well, and I know that we share that in this piece, but a lot of our stories have been erased. A lot of our stories are not heard, they are ignored, and I believe that the key to us healing ourselves, our community, our people, is to begin to tell our stories and share them. So now it's in black and white, it's documented, and if I do it, that empowers the next person that I know to become right, encourage that vulnerability, and not to be afraid. I had some thoughts, like, what are they going to say? Because people, remember, all those people in these little towns had opinions. Even though the church was full, and there were lots of people there. My father was a musician, a minister. He did all his community work in New York. Like he really outdid himself in New York. But in North Carolina, there was still this piece. They didn't know the New York Bernard. They didn't know the New York, everybody calls my mom, Sam. And I wanted people to know that. Because there's power. But there's power in that marriage. And if we can begin to tap into our power, our marriages will last, our kids will be successful, they will be strong. And so it's working through that.
So I want, I want to open up the floor for some conversation now. Whether you have a question about Felicia's journey with this book, or whether you want to talk to us about anything from activating your story, because this is about you, guys. This is about you. It's about a conversation. What I hope happened tonight is the extraordinary ability to connect with each other's stories. Hopefully you meet somebody tonight whose story changed your life, you changed their life. Because at the end of the day, one of the reasons why solitary confinement is the worst punishment in the world in prison is because you disconnect from people's energies, their cellular capacity, the storytelling. It's punishing. Yes, I like a little me time sometimes, but when I emerge from it, I yearn for connection, right? And so, any questions as you guys start thinking about okay, Jean?
Thank you very much. I've got a question because as you were introducing the book and the title of the book, you said there are many Ignite Yours. Ignite Your Faith. Why is the book Ignite Your Courage?
Awesome. Great question. Why be a part of the courage movement?
And I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth on this because I had the option. I could have gone with another book because she was writing, she had two projects going at the same time. But I stuck with Ignite Your Courage because of my parents' story. I feel that they built courage silently for me. to do things, to do the unthinkable, to get my college degree, right? All the sacrifice, maneuvering in that space, getting that done. And I'll just say, we were talking in the Mr. Wait, what's his name? Thank you. We were talking about the dad-daughter situation, right? So in America, it's a little different. You meet the guys at school and they start talking to you, blah, blah, blah. And then, can I get your number? And they call the house.
Back in the day.
But when they called my house, my daughter's going to college. Click. Okay, Daddy. But you know them. You know them. Yeah, I know I know them. I know the mom, I know the dad, I know the grandparents. We're going to college. Click. It wouldn't stop. It's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. But in that, right, I had to reflect because that was embarrassing. Because that's our culture, so we're open like that. You just call it. You know. So many years later, I realized how watching them navigate, because if you recall, my dad went to New York 3 times. He went when I was like 6 years old, and he started studying music at the university. And my mom agreed to that, and my parents got married at 18 and 21. My mom walked across the stage, and I was born in October. She walked across in June, I was born in October. So that was unorthodox, right? So with all of that being said, it's like, these two, okay. Because my mom grew up on a farm, very, very cookie cutter journey. My dad's, his story was a little bit more of a twist and turn. But in that, those experiences, going to New York as a kid, leaving that small town, going to the top of the Empire State Building at 7 years old, going in that university setting and watching him and his musician friends play drums and play music. Like, I remember those sounds. I will never forget those sounds, right? So I'm watching all of this in a little girl's body, but realizing as an adult, and I'm gonna tell you this, when I moved to the Washington, D.C. area, I think my dad was in Dubai. I think he was in Dubai. Yeah, he was in Dubai. And he was working over there. And I wrote him a letter, and this is different from the African culture. I wrote him a letter and I said, okay, and he actually left like a week or 2 after I graduated from college. Wrote him a letter, I said, Dad, when you get back, I'll be living in Washington, D.C. He was livid. And so we went through, we had our exchange back and forth, and I said, but I did everything you told me to. I got my college degree, I'm ready. I'm going to find me a job. You didn't even stay down there. You went to New York, And so he was livid. But he got over it. So that was courage, because this is the same man that said, kid, my daughter was going to college, I went to home. So there were lots of emotions that I experienced as a child and as a teenager, and I kind of lost my voice, kind of afraid to say, hey, Dad, can we talk about this? But I found courage in the most interesting way. And then I didn't even have a job. Be blessed. I didn't even have a job when I moved. I had a college degree, I had my car, and I had my clothes, and I had a place to stay, which was a friend. And I just beat the pavement from there. I got a job at a law firm in D.C. I started working there. My degree's in criminal justice. I minored in Spanish. And I'll tell you, some days I went in, I took the metro, and I said, Lord, I don't know how I'm gonna get home, but my metro card is 25 cents short. So I don't know how I'm gonna check out at the station when I get back home, but I'm going. So I just kept going. So that helps.
Next question.
Okay, so you had enough courage to publish your book, but I think I want to know putting all your experiences and your fears and your tribulations into something so public that it's like you're opening up yourself for like scrutiny and vulnerability. I want to know how you got over that voice in your head that probably told you, let's not do it, let's leave it alone. I don't want people wanting to know, this is what I went through, this is what I've been through. How did you get over that?
Well, I do think that my quiet experience in that was my parents. They were building something in me that was, right, it had to mature, it had to evolve, it had to come together. The other piece of it is my spiritual background. I was raised in the church, sang in the choir, usher board, Sunday school convention, Sunday school, Bible study. So I've always had a very strong spiritual, my foundation is solid. So, not to say it's never tested, but it's solid. So on those days when I'm like, oh, should I do this? Always going to look at myself in the mirror and I say, Felicia, you got this. You got to do it for your kids. You got to do it for your family. You got to do it for you. And when I get that strong sense, I have a strong sense of discernment, but I listen to that voice. I've learned to listen to the voice, because the voice that says go, there's usually a voice that says, no, don't do that. They're not going to understand. But just like Tim and I are standing here today, he was like, Felicia, let's do this book. Let's do this book discussion. Let's do this book launch. I was like, let's do it. 24 hours, right? Conversation. I was literally leaving the next day. I told my husband, go downstairs, throw those books in that suitcase, let me get myself out of here. So it's just telling that other voice, you don't belong here. The voice is saying go is the voice, right? And when you don't know how to get there, it's trust in the process. Trust the process.
The one thing I know everybody wants to ask is that when you were leaving out of the house and your husband, when you were like walking out to go on this trip, did your husband say, bye, Felicia?
That's if I was doing a lot of talking.
Hey, Felicia. So I'm an audience member, and I'm listening to you and watching you telling your story and aspects of your story. I have a question about the creative process. When you began to write, did you also, as you were writing and harvesting the stories from your life, did you also tell those stories to other people as they emerged? And in that telling and sharing with other people, or in the process of just harvesting those stories from your own life, did you find that enabled you to become better at telling those stories? And did you find it became easier to extract and harvest and discover those stories that perhaps you weren't aware were there, or aspects of your stories that were perhaps more subtle or hidden?
This is a great question. I mean, because I know this could be different for everyone. Because Colin often really protect my stories when I'm writing. In fact, I told a story in my second book about my father, that when the book came out, he didn't speak to me for a year because I told that story. Literally, I wasn't even allowed into his house. It was the most traumatic healing process, because I basically told a story about him kicking me out of the house because I didn't want to work at one of those factories. And this is real, what she's talking about. We grew up in a really small town, where if you didn't work for that factory, you didn't mean anything. You weren't serious about life. So I'm interested as well.
I'm going to tell you something. Tim says, I have a lot of, yeah. The the expressions just kind of come out naturally on my face and in my voice. But I want to tell you something. I watched my dad pack up those drums and put them in the car. It wasn't a new car, it wasn't anything fancy, and he was just like, he would do these festivals in our town at the lake, and people would come, and then we would go to Greensboro, which was the next town over, and people would come, like wherever he was, they would come, right? But there was still that piece that people did not understand. It's just unorthodox. You don't do that here. So I would just say that my dad was a rapper. He was true to his truth, and I respect him for that. I didn't like the way he said it all the time. I thought he could have said it better. When I had my son, I told him, I said, God has a way, because this is humor. I have a sister. We don't share the same mom, but we share the same dad. She has 3 girls. I have a girl and a boy. I said, look how funny God is. He didn't give you a boy until you figured out how to communicate with those girls. He was like, okay, Felicia. But that was my truth. He allowed me to speak my truth. So I think that was a piece of it. I grew up in a house where we spoke our truth. I was respectful. I had no choice but to be respectful. But I remember my dad bringing my sister over to our house. I'm going to take a step back. I remember my mom saying to my dad, before she goes to elementary school, you will tell her about her sister. Because when she goes to school, if you don't tell her, somebody else is going to tell her. The features would have told me, because we look a lot alike. The other part of it was that when my dad got ready to go to New York that 3rd time, when he really pursued his journey and things took off for him, he brought my sister to the house and he set us both down at the kitchen table and he talked to us about what he was doing and why he was doing it. And my mom never talked negative about my father. Even though he didn't fit the profile, she never talked negative about him. I remember going in her room and she worked hard. My mother was a courier for FedEx. So she worked a lot of hard and I'm not talking about in the office, I'm talking about throwing that to the back of the truck. So she did that. And I remember she would come in so nice and she would fall asleep on her knees. She would fall asleep praying. So to me, that was the harvest. Because, and then 4 months after I moved to DC, she moved to New York with him. And they stayed there for 30 years. And he passed away in 2019. But that was the harvesting because they lived their truth in front of me. They talked to me about it. We talked about it as a family. I was able to express myself about how it made me feel, what was going on, and so the way I raise my kids, we're not living any lies. We're not burying any stories. We are speaking our truth because the truth prevails much. Mm-hmm. But if you lie to each other and you fake it till you make it with your family, we're not doing that. My parents didn't do it, I think it worked for us. So that's what made me feel comfortable.
Awesome. Let's take one more question in the back.
Family traveling the continent. This is a continent that I love dearly. I look forward to hearing stories about how you make it up towards West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa. This continent revolutionized and changed everything about who I am and my identity. It's helped me evolve. I'm grateful for my core and our small town farming upbringing that will never change. But it's at so many layers, and I hope the rest of this trip continues to add layer and layer. And I hope meeting these people radically changes your life. Let's give Felicia another big round of applause. I want you guys to get out your phones real quick. I want you to take a couple of notes. I want to share with you some of the strategies that I've been working on to help you activate your stories and some thoughts and some thinking. One of the things we do, and I just took this kind of partnership with this organization called Podcast Party, and one of the things we've been doing is to activate ideas is to write short 300-word blogs. It's like one paragraph, okay? One short paragraph, and then find an app to turn that into audio. It's one of the most powerful things I've seen in terms of the creative process, Colin. So let's say, for example, you've been thinking about relationships, and you've got an idea about relationships. Or let's say you've been thinking about raising funds for a venture. Or let's say you've been thinking about inclusion, or you've been thinking about launching out and starting your own business. Or let's say you've been thinking about bringing a group of women together for a program, or whatever the case is. I'm taking young boys to become men. If you've got an idea, turn it into like a 300 or 400 word paragraph, which is like the size of a blog. And then drop that into AI so that it become automated so you can hear back your own brilliance. People are doing this in the most extraordinary ways. They are writing stories and turning them into their own podcasts. A friend of mine started a podcast called Conversations with Dead People. I don't know if you've heard about this podcast, but basically he is taking articles that Einstein wrote and he's having a conversation with AI on that article. It's extraordinary. And part of the thing about telling your story that can be grippingly challenging is, and this is the part that no one tells you about, is that once you tell your story, there seems to be, the brain creates in the neocortex a pattern that makes you feel like that is your limit. So one of the reasons why I like this book is that you do need courage to tell your story, because that resistance you feel is very, very real. And so the idea of hearing AI tell you your story back can help break paradigms in your own mind about your own possibilities in your story, about the own possibilities in your own mind. And so I'd like you guys to really use that as a strategy. The second thing I'd like to share with you is that I want you to reach out to random people and just appear on, because everybody has a podcast. Like, literally, everybody has a podcast. It's funny, we get people every day coming to us wanting to do podcasts. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there can be too many. Because I think everybody's unique. And I think everybody has an audience, right? Even if it's just your family member. Everybody has an audience. I remember when I started, this is my 10th year with my podcast, by the way. Can I get a round of applause? Yes, this is my 10th year. And when I started, it was literally just me listening. So that journey has been fascinating. But one of the reasons why I enjoy podcasting, even if I know that episode is just me rambling with my own craziness, is that it gives me a chance to synthesize my ideas and some of the complex things I've been working on. And so your own complexity, even if you never publish your podcast, I want you to DM me or email me, and I'm going to send you a template for you to create it. Okay? And here's why. That as you go through that process, you're going to find, this is what I like about writing books, you're going to find that the extraordinary complexity that's been like a spider web in your own head starts to simplify itself. And it's a beautiful feeling. For those of you who journal, you know what I'm talking about. Where the journal is at. Where the journal is. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And so it's an extraordinarily beautiful thing to put those ideas out there. Where are my podcasters? Raise your hand. Where are the podcasters?
Billy has a podcast, and a few other people. Who's about to release a podcast? Anybody? Okay, a couple people. Let's give a quick shout out to some of your favorite podcasts. Who listens to podcasts? Okay, cool. Let's just give me some random. What do you listen to? One that you like, you love. Valuetainment. Anybody else?
Yes.
Okay. Who else?
Diary of a CEO.
Diary of a CEO. Can I tell you, one of my closest friends in the world has the Diary of a CEO most popular episode, Dr. Tara Swart. And she also appears on my podcast. And it's funny because when I told Tara she should start her own podcast, you know why she started it? She says, because I want to simplify science and get it out to as many people as possible. And she's become like this rock star. And she can't even believe it. But what helped her start doing it was the death of her husband. Is that at that moment she realized that he'd been pushing her to do it and she'd been holding back. And again, her being able to simplify her ideas by putting it out there on her own and other podcasts has changed her life. And she's dedicated all of that to him. And so as you guys go about putting out content, I want you to be thinking about who has inspired you, whether it's your father, whether it's your children, whether it's whoever it is, dedicated to somebody. I'll tell you a secret about being a columnist for so long. I wrote for Destiny for about 11 years. Forbes Woman, the Star newspaper. Every single column I wrote, I had somebody in mind. I knew what they looked like, how they walked. I knew what microaggressions they were facing. I knew exactly what their pulse was like. And I want you to be thinking about whenever you decide to put something out, whether it's a new business like Mark and Tasha, whether you're reaching out to America's asking them to come here for investment opportunities, or whether it's a women's group like No Vinny, what are their challenges? Create an archetype so that you can feel their pulse. There's few things that are as extraordinary as that when you put something out there and you touch somebody at that level. And I hope that's what's happening with this book when you read it, that you had somebody in mind and maybe they're here in this audience. I'm going to open up for 1-2 more questions max. If you guys have any more questions either for myself or Felicia, and then we're going to wrap it up.
All right, guys, welcome to the Mark Cam. I'm here at one of the bookstores here in the Mall of Africa, actually. I got invited to an event. We had a young lady who's from, where is she from? She's from North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina. And so she wrote a book, and obviously working through the networks that we have here, we are able to get her here and to, let her tell her story. And it's great to see Americans and South Africans coming together. We got similar stories. There's the author right there. But yeah, and then of course Tim right there. He's the one. He's an American. He's been here for about 20 years or so. And so it's pretty interesting. And it's pretty cool that we get to come together. But yeah, we do have bookstores here in South Africa, if you didn't know. And I'm sorry, it's going to sound crazy, but we do have amazing bookstores here. And yes, some of the same books you find in the States we have here. And then, of course, we have our own. So we have everything. See ya. Mark Blanton, and this is
Dr. Latasha Blanton from the Real South Africa Travel and Tourism.
And we have amazing packages to Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban. So we would like to see you guys here. All you have to do is just go to our website, therealsouthafrica.com, and we'll make sure that your trip here is amazing.
See you here in sunny South Africa.
All right, guys, join us in South Africa on this special tour that we're putting together for you guys, those of us who like great spas, luxe experiences, great food, great venues, like top-notch everything, this tour is for you. They're not too different than our regular tours that we normally do to Johannesburg, Cape Town, but this one is going to be extra special because you're going to get a chance to meet the chefs. You're going to get a chance to, just chill out. And of course, there's going to be a lot of shopping involved. So just go to our website, therealsouthafrica.com, and you too could be chilling in South Africa. And if you've never been to South Africa or you've never been to Africa, well, this is the perfect time for you to book that trip to make sure everything is taken care of, because we take care of your transportation, we take care of your hotels, your lodging, we take care of all your venues where you're going to eat. I mean, this is a no-brainer. It's the easiest way to travel, and to travel proper is to have everything selected for you, sorted, so you can have an amazing time. So all I can say is book this trip, and of course, go to our website, therealsouthafrica.com, and you're going to have the most amazing time possible. See you in sunny South Africa. All right, guys, the real estate tour for 2025, it has been set. We're going to Durban. Durban is amazing, as you can see. A lot of coastal villages, a lot of coastal property that you're going to be able to see right there on the Indian Ocean. We're going to be having a lot of events while you guys are there. Just like the 2024 trip, they were surprised of how organized and how well it was, and that they had access to property, and you're going to be able to have access to property as well. So if you ever thought about having property in sunny South Africa, this is your chance. I would say book this trip immediately, come through. Of course, we have payment plans and so forth. And of course, we have a lot of content on our YouTube channel talking about what they did in 2024 and in 2023 and in 2022. So I would say for you guys that are interested, come to sunny South Africa Real Estate Tour.
Imagine a place where your history comes alive and your future unfolds. Welcome to South Africa, where Black excellence meets natural wonder. From the vibrant streets of Johannesburg to the sun-kissed beaches of Durban, a journey of discovery awaits. The Real South Africa Travel and Tourism understands your journey. Because it's our journey too, we've curated experiences that speak to the Black American soul, ensuring your trip is not just a vacation, but a homecoming. From safaris that bring you face-to-face with majestic wildlife, to wine tours in the lush Cape winelands, we offer adventures that cater to every taste and interest. So why are Black Americans flocking to South Africa? Because here we don't just visit, we belong. Book your unforgettable journey today with the Real South Africa Travel and Tourism. Discover your roots, embrace your future. The Real South Africa awaits.
All right, guys, this is Mark Edward Blanton from the Real South Africa, and guess what? Our visa services is back. We're going to be helping you guys with visas because we all know that it can be problematic to get a visa here in the Republic of South Africa. So what we have done, we partnered with a big company that will assist us, and we've checked them out. We recommend that their services are very, very proper. Of course, we go with proper here in the Republic of South Africa, and they can assist you. So if you have questions about, do I qualify for a visa? Then that's when we have our consult. You get a consult with these guys. They will literally go through everything with you. And my expectations is for you to ask all the questions that you need to ask so you will know exactly which way to proceed. So they work in every arena of immigrations. So it would definitely help us who are looking to migrate to the Republic of South Africa. And all I can say is first, come on a trip, of course. And once you come on a trip, then you will be motivated to do all the work that needs to happen for you guys to come to South Africa properly. So all I can say is this is a great team. This is a great situation. All I can say is, again, reach out to us at outreach@therealsouthafrica.com. We will respond to you, and then you'll get an email, and then the process has began. Okay, so we will see you guys here properly in sunny South Africa.
South Africa has partnered with the firm to give you more options for payment. Please visit our website to find out more. Do yourself a favor. Come to South Africa. Come to the Kruger and enjoy what is meant for you to enjoy. Look at this environment. Can't you see yourself enjoying yourself right here with the Real South Africa Travel and Tourism? Well, we can make it possible, and we can do this for you today. Go to our website, therealsouthafrica.com, and book, and you'll be part of something like this, something very special, something you can tell your friends and families that you did. And yes, this is Africa. This is the Africa that they do not want you to see, but we're going to show it to you, and we're going to make it available. And yes, we've been there ourselves, and we feel that this is the best experience that you can actually have here in the Republic of South Africa. So come here on safari with us. And of course, visit our website, therealsouthafrica.com. All right, guys, welcome to the Real South Africa Travel and Tourism. We are a travel company based in Johannesburg. However, we can get you to Durban because look at what you're looking at. Isn't that amazing? Can't you imagine yourself just hanging out here for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days? I'm trying to tell you, you're probably not going to want to leave like a lot of our guests from the past. However, all you have to do to come here is reach out to our website, therealsouthafrica.com, and you can come and enjoy and see what South Africa is really about. There's so much here, so much to do between the beaches, between the culture, between the food and everything else. And of course, the people here in South Africa in this place called Durban. We will see you here in sunny South Africa. It is time for a vacation, and where else would you want to go? Look at South Africa as one of the premier destinations in the world. We have Cape Town, we have Johannesburg, and of course we have Durban, and of course some of the best attractions in the world. We offer 5-star experiences here in South Africa, and of course the cultural side of South Africa as well. Contact us now here at The Real South Africa.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. If you like what you saw, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the notifications button so you don't miss out on all things The Real South Africa. Thanks again.